I'd never pastored before, so I didn't know what to expect. I'd been on church staffs for 10 years, but never pastored. Our first Sunday, we had 44 people. I quickly grew the church to average 8 over the next 6 weeks. And then by the first year, we had 30 people on average. And on our first anniversary, we bought the Lincoln School building for $80,000 cash. So we had some really tremendous highs and we had some really tremendous lows. But by the first year, we were up and running. By year 3, we were running probably about 120 and doing well. But as a young pastor, I made a lot of mistakes, not knowing things and being a little bullheaded. But God spared us from most of that. My first thoughts were, I hope we can actually get this thing going. I remember going door to door one day and I followed a Mormon and a Jehovah's Witness. I was the third one to knock on the guy's door that day and he told me. And that's when I just gave up door to door and went to direct mail and newspaper advertising. We were just worried about starting the church and getting it going and keeping it going. The idea that 30 years later, in spite of our mistakes, in spite of some of our shortcomings, there's a vibrant church. I mean, we started with nothing. We had no clue, really had no knowledge. In fact, the 4th year of the church, my wife and I were driving down the highway and she said, you know, your preaching was so bad the first 3 years, I was too embarrassed to invite anybody to the church. And I said, well, thank you for telling me that now and not then. So thankfully my preaching improved over the years, and especially we went to 2 services and I got to redo a lot of sermons, so that helped. So to think back about how much we didn't know, how much we didn't have, how green I was, how many mistakes we made, and still see God's faithfulness and allow the church to survive and even thrive and be at the place it is now, 30 years later, is amazing. And it is fun to think about that. You know, I think back when we started the church, I went door to door, as I told you. I went to about 500 homes. One old guy named Dave said, well, I think I might just come. And I thought to myself, yeah, right, buddy, you and 600 others. And I thought, he'll never come, and if he does, what difference would it make for this old man? When I look back at Dave, who came that first Sunday and then brought his sister, they were in their 70s. We look back at their spiritual tree, and they brought people over the years, and then those people brought people. We had 53 members from his spiritual tree, and we baptized a lot of those folks. So when you're talking about spiritual work and church work, you look at someone you might think is insignificant, and you say, yeah, sure, you might come, and what difference would it make anyway? Get that fleshly thought. But it turns out that God can use some of those folks more than he can use the most gifted of people. When I walked into the church about 3 or 4 years ago, the Racket Club, and I saw what I saw, it was beyond my imagination what someone could do with the church. And I thought to myself, there is no way I could have ever dreamed this. It was so fabulous, and I was so excited. And so when I look at us starting in the 90-seat auditorium at the Lincoln School, or even before in the little conference room at the hotel, and fast forward a couple of decades, and then see what the church has become, it is amazing to me. It is inconceivable that that little nucleus of a couple of people could become such a quality church. And to me, that's exciting. And I think that those folks along the way through those 30 years, whether they had a small part or large part, are to be congratulated for the great work that's being done. And I hope there's another 30 years and more.